All right, guys. Well, here we are. I just did a monologue, so there's no point to do a long introduction. I want to get right into the story. I do want to say, though, it's been a lackluster month. I know that the nature of what I do, there's going to be peaks and valleys. I put a lot of content out, and I have for like a long time consistently. Considering what it is, that it's just me like talking about my life and like continually putting out new stuff, sometimes repeat stuff, but for the most part, I tried to bring fresh stuff to the table. I think it's just inevitable that I'm going to have peaks and valleys like that. And I do appreciate people that understand that. I'm legitimately in pain right now. I'm just going through a tough time, but whatever, I'm trying to just put that shit outside of my head and just get right into the story. So you guys can be like, this guy's ridiculous. Look at him. The Colonel. So this story, I was thinking about what I was going to do. I want to do psychedelic video before the month's end. I want to do another sex files, even though people are like, yeah, that's weird. Yo, weird. Yo, weird. Really? Oh, okay. Sorry that I showed my hand. I mean, didn't know you guys knew that. I understand what you mean, though. I mean, I'll try to move the timeline of that up so that I'm over 18, because that is kind of weird. But I want to do those videos. I want to just make for all tier video like a bonus story right now, and I thought that this was a good one. I don't think I've ever done this story before. I may have, and I apologize if I have. I forget what I've done because I've done a lot. I've done like hundreds at this point. But this is a good one, and I was just thinking about it on the earlier monologue when we were talking about Paul. And so, without further ado, let's get into this story. So, as I explained before, this is, real quick, this is where I'm at, just so you know, chronologically. I'm probably 21 years old at the time. And, I'd been kicked out of rehabs, met Jenny, then I met Sass. I started selling Molly, and it was a very interesting transition for me because I went from being completely broke, like my only hustle was middleman and coke at that time, to really having a lot of money. Like I always had wads of cash. This was in the beginning. This isn't when I was making like really good money, but I was probably making like a few grand a week or something. I don't really remember, but I had money at that time. We didn't have our own place yet. So this is before, when you see the videos of us in the Milpas house, that's that like 4 or 5 bedroom house where Jeff and I are like shooting heroin, like in our boxers, and Jenny's in it. Gabriel's like, filming us. There's shit in the toilet. That house. This story takes place before we got that place. So we were kind of like going from hotel to hotel at that point. And somebody had clearly told on us. I've told stories about different times when I'd gotten pulled over in that period. That time when I put the key up my ass. Time where I peed in the Taco Bell cup and put in the cup holder. It was obvious that somebody told on us like right away. So living in Motel, Santa Barbara is about as nice of a town as you can imagine. At like the Motel 6, there's like Maseratis. Someone's like, hey, my butler's going to get that. Hey, you get the duffel bag, butler. Yes, sir. It's like that kind of crowd. It's not... growing up there, I got like a false sense of like what the world was about. Because I thought that everybody had butlers that got their tote bags when they went to Motel 6. It's just not the kind of place that's scummy. There's scummy stuff that goes on in Santa Barbara, sure. But it's not like LA. Like now I live in LA, there's like ghetto choppers, ghetto birds all the time. There's like helicopters with spotlights. There's like drunk paisas like running down like highways with like blood streaming out of their like mouth. I'm like, look at the paisa. She's like, that blood smells like your dick, I bet. So at that point in Santa Barbara, when you're doing something bad, which I was selling Molly. I think I was selling coke a little bit. I may have given that up, I never was really like a big coke dealer. I was just middlemaning stuff. I think I was just like selling Molly and maybe like pulling together money for heroin. I hadn't started selling heroin yet. Like not the balloons. That stuff hadn't happened yet. And so because the town is nice like that, because there's butlers in motel parking lots, and because you don't see just random sketchy shit happening, there's a lot of scrutiny over the local motels. It's really easy to get busted in Santa Barbara. You know, the cops are it's like the kind of town where there's not enough crime going on, so they just like go around looking to bust people. And, you know, there's other towns like that sprinkled throughout the country, but that's how Santa Barbara was at that time. So I kept getting pulled over, and I was doing heroin. I know that, because that was one of the really sketchy aspects of it. You know, it was still in that period where Jenny didn't want me doing it. So I had to do it on the down low. Yeah, we'd be fucking on the down low. When she would find me using, she would go through my phone, see the dealers that I called. She'd call them and say, "If you serve him anymore, I'm going to call the cops and tell him that you sold my boyfriend heroin." People like didn't want to fuck with me at that point, obviously. I mean, she would sketch people out. So I had to do a lot of sneaky stuff. Wait for her to go to sleep. I had the 85 Volvo at that time. Jump in the car and go to my connection's house. Now at that time, the connection that I had was this guy named John. He was this Mexican guy who's probably 48. He lived with his parents. He had like Weezer posters on his wall. He's like, "That band fucking rocks, dog." He was Mexican, but he talked like a white biker or something. I don't know. And he was always in his boxers. And his dick would always kind of like, I'd always see like the head peeking out. I'm like, "Hey man." He's like, "What? You're in my parameters now, dog." I'm like, "Aren't you Mexican? Why do you talk like you have a beard, man?" He's like, oh yeah, I don't know. I'm old, bro." And I would like go to his house at all random ass hours. I'd go at like 3, 4 in the morning because I'd have to wait for her to go to sleep. And then he'd always be there in his boxers. And his parents were like these old classic paisa. You know, his mom had like a perm and shit, pearl necklace. They had like Virgin Mary statues like all over their house and like warship mantles and shit. And he was one of those guys. Like, so he wasn't a drug dealer. He was just some guy that was middlemaning. And he was one of those guys that like, you couldn't just get dope from him. You had to hang out with him, you know? And he was like the worst. You know, you ever have somebody that you buy drugs off of and you don't really like them and you're not into anything that they're into? Like he was into like lowriders and he always had like, he's like, "Dude, you want to watch another lowrider video, bro? You should see the paint on these puppies, man. Fucking badass." I'm like, "Not really, dude. I gotta go." He's like, "Well, I mean, this isn't a stop and shop, dog. You gotta stay here and you gotta watch lowrider videos with me and no, his parents were never watching this, but I'd have to sit in his room and have to watch these fucking lowrider videos." It was so annoying. Sometimes he'd be like reading, he read a lot of like fantasy books, which I'm not into. And sometimes he'd be like, "Hey, I got an idea. I'll read a page, you read a page. We'll switch back and forth. You can kind of envision the fantastical shit, right? Come on, do it." And I'm just like, fuck, man. So I'm sitting there like 4 in the morning reading fantasy books to this weird ass Mexican dude that's always in his boxers that talks like he's a white biker. That's what my life looked like at that time. And I had to sneak it. So it was like sketchy because I had to sneak out at like 4 in the morning. I had to leave the motel. And like I said, these motels are always under scrutiny because there's not a lot of sketchy stuff happening in Santa Barbara. So cops will just literally hang out by motels. And as soon as they see some shitty beat up 85 Volvo, they'll go pull you over. I had already gotten, told on at that point, I think. I'm almost positive that's kind of where the cop busters thing came from from the first place, because I was getting fucked with so much. We started recording it. I probably got pulled over, without exaggeration, 3 out of 5 times that I left the motel. So not only was I dealing with sneaking away from her, but I also had to like sneak into this guy's house. And then I had to make sure that cops didn't intercept me on the way. It was just a really annoying situation. And I knew that if I stayed at motels for much longer, I was going to get busted. I mean, it just felt that way. I could feel it. It was like an impending sense of doom. I just had anxiety all the time, even though I was high on heroin. And I was like, oh wait, I care about something. Oh, I don't want to get busted. We shouldn't be here. And Jenny didn't care. You know, she wasn't doing heroin, but she was pretty deep into coke at that point with me as well. So we were actively looking to rent a place. Now the problem was that neither of us had good credit. Neither of us had verifiable income. Didn't matter that we had cash. Once in a while, you'll find like somebody that owns like a private owner. Somebody that owns a condo that'll rent it out to you. Someone that has a house that they've like turned into a duplex, whatever the case. But if you're dealing with a property management company and like an like I smelled like I did heroin. Someone's like, heroin? I'm like, no. Oh, no, not here. Like it was just impossible for us to find a place. So at that time, my good friend Preston, the guy that goes, "But fuck me, grandpa," he had caught in a case. Now, Preston's one of the smart, he's like, to this day, one of my best friends. One of the smartest guys I've ever met in my entire life. And he is a fucking psychopath. I mean, he's kind of got like a computer dork feel to him, but he's a cold criminal. He always has been. We got into computer hacking together when we were, 11, 12 years old. He was like the only other fuck up at this private school that I went to. And he was an only child just like me, and we're just little brats. We always got in trouble. I got into drugs and girls earlier than him, but he caught up to me, and by this point in his life, he's like a year younger than me. I was like 21, he was 20, and he was making fake IDs. So he always had sophisticated hustles. Remember, I was into making fake IDs in high school. That was one of my hustles back then. He had gotten on meth. He was smoking meth. He was a full-blown tweaker at this point, and he was doing identity theft. And not only was he doing identity theft, he learned from doing it that he could just make fake IDs for idiot tweakers, and then he didn't even have to do the sketchy part. He just made fake IDs for tweakers, or at least he thought that wasn't sketchy. So he had like this, he lived with his dad, his parents are divorced, and he had this little fake ID lab at his place. And he was like a traditional tweaker. He's like one of those guys that gets spun out. He's like, man, I think I'm going to construct a photo booth. Make it look just like it would if you were like at a passport place, and then people can come here and take a picture, and then I can put it on the fake ID. That would be badass, huh? You want to smoke this? And like back then I was a garbage pail. Like, yeah, I'd smoke it. And I'd be like, yeah, let's construct it. And then we'd like tweak out and like make this like photo booth with like a curtain. So we had like a full-blown fake ID lab at his place. His dad lived there. His dad had always been one of those guys that was pretty lenient with him. He was definitely like, when I was a kid, I always liked spending the night at his house because his dad like didn't care what we did. We'd be like 12. We'd be like smoking cigars and like drinking wine out of the bottle. His dad's like, what are you kids doing? We're like, nothing. We're just going to watch some TV. He's like, all right. He'd like see us drinking. He didn't care. So it was always preferable to go over there. Now Preston's like 20 years old, full-blown meth addict. And his hustle is making these fake IDs. So you can imagine the kind of people that would show up to his place. Be like people like dragging like aluminum sheet metal like on a rope. They've been like walking 9 miles barefoot with. Oh no, I just found this aluminum metal, dog. I think I'm gonna recycle it. Hey, can I get one of those IDs? Oh, all right now. Like people like that, right? The scummiest fucking tweakers would come to his dad's house. His dad was oblivious. He like thought he was just going through a homeless people with dyed hair phase. So I went over there a lot because I was living at these motels. And like I said, my life was sketchy. That's why I brought that up in the beginning of the video. God, they're so annoying. I liked going over to his place because it was one of the few places that I could go to that wasn't a motel that I could just go hang out at. Although there'd always be tweakers. There'd always be some guy like in the bathroom, like with the door locked, beating off. Person like, God, hey man, I can fucking hear you. He's like, shut up. I'm showering. There's no water running. And like you'd like hear the water, like the fucking sink go on. Preston's like, that's the sink, bro. And then you'd finally hear the shower turn on. People like that. So he was fucking with some guy, I forget what his name was, but somebody that nobody liked. He just seemed sketchy. You know, he's like some guy that would come with like an acoustic guitar strapped to his fucking shoulder, but he didn't play. It's like one of those kind of guys. Like, dude, why do you always have a guitar strapped around your neck? He's like, I don't know, I'm thinking about touring. I'm like, do you play? Not yet. It doesn't mean nothing. I'm like, you know, it's delusional tweaker. I forget what his name was. I think it was Nick. I think his name was Nick. Or like Nikolai or some shit. But that guy ended up getting busted. Don't remember for what. I think maybe he got a possession. And this was back in 2004, 2005, before California had passed a law that essentially made simple possession of drugs misdemeanors. So back then, if you got caught with meth, you could go to prison. So that was an era where simple tweakers or junkies getting caught with little paltry amounts of drugs would tell on people to get out of their little simple possessions because they didn't want to go to prison. So a lot of people are getting told on back then. I mean, people still are bitch-ass rats like that, but it was really, the climate then was like really bad. Nobody trusted anybody. It felt like we were playing like Battleship. Battle Snitch. All right. So Preston got told on for making fake IDs, and his house got raided. We literally got paperwork on the tweaker guy with the acoustic guitar, Nikolai, I think. Nick or Nikolai, whatever. They had told on him. On their police report, it's like, we can keep your name confidential. It's like, nah, I want him to know that I'm the one that fucked him over. I hate that dude. Fuck him. He was probably all twacked out, going through psychosis. I swear. This is what the statement said. So Preston's house gets raided, and he gets cracked for making fake. Not only did he get caught with fake ID material, they like took the photo booth with the curtain. They're like, what is this? He's like, oh. And they also found a bunch of meth. So he got busted. It was like a considerable bust at that time. I forget what he was looking at, but, you know, his dad, mom and dad put money up to get him an attorney. He fought it for a while, and eventually he got 4 months in jail. And back then, 4 months was like hardcore. People like sign their wills. Like, yeah, I'm changing my will, man. It's like, do you have any assets? Nah, but just in case I die. Just wanted to be on paper who I loved and who I didn't. So I knew he was going away. And it was one of those things where like he was out on bail, but he knew that he was like had this sentence coming up. And I asked him if I could live with it, if I could go stay with his dad. You know, it was perfect. His dad didn't care what I did anyway. You know, I was scared that there'd be like, you know, weird tweaker guys with like masquerade masks on, like just being like, hey man, I was just seeing if I could dance here, man. Just if I could use this space to dance a little bit. That's all. No, get the fuck out of here, tweaker. Jesus Christ. But aside from that, it was perfect. Cops didn't know where I was. You know, no longer would I be leaving in the middle of the night and going out to John's house, having to read fantasy books with this pantless weirdo. Well, I'd still have to go there. But at least I wouldn't have to leave from a motel, because that was like when you probably were most likely to get busted. Preston's dad was with it. Preston's dad loved me. He was like, hell yeah, let's do this. You know, so Preston was going to jail. Jenny and I finally had a place to stay. And the way that the house was set up, of course, Preston's a tweaker, so he like remodeled the house. It was like he had his own section. There was like a private entrance in the backyard. You know, it was a nice setup. It was like we were going to have a private place there. So he ends up going to jail. He was scared. You know, he's like, hit me in the face, bro. I'm like, why? He's like, because I want to be tough. Fuck it. And he's like, bit on a soap bar. I was like, dude, I had been to jail. I was like, hey, bro, it's not that bad. I mean, fuck. I might get in a few fights. He's like, fuck. He was scared. He ends up going to jail. We move in there. That was probably the worst period in my life for IV cocaine use. I've been shooting coke now. I'm 21 at the time the story takes place. I've been shooting coke for 3 years. But never on the level that I did at that house. I don't know why. I think maybe it had something to do with I'm like sitting on my keys. Shampoo bottle rolls away. I think that what had happened is that Jenny's addiction had started to get pretty bad, you know, with coke. She was just snorting it. And I've explained the dynamic with her before. You know, it was like, she was definitely against me doing heroin, but she was a drug addict in her own right. And she's one of those people that was like, cocaine's okay, but heroin? No way. Even though shooting coke is probably just as dangerous, if not more dangerous. So I didn't have to hide it from her, you know, because, you know, with heroin, that was one thing. But with cocaine, I'm like, you can't tell me how to administer it. I can shoot it if I want. I already had septum issues even at that age. So she's like, okay, just shoot it. And I think that's probably like what propelled me down into this weird ass rabbit hole of IV cocaine, which is a violent psychosis. You know, I'm pretty sure that I mentioned at some point that I remember like one night I did a shot of coke. I did way too much, right? Did it, and it was like, I was like, and then I just started hearing these like hellacious demonic wails, like, come down. And I was like, huh? Come back down. And I was like, I like touched my dick. I was like, it was still there. I was like, oh, thank God. I didn't know what was happening, but I heard these like audible hallucinations that I can only describe as like a scene from a horror movie where like demons are in some fiery pits trying to like grab you and suck you down into it. Suck your dick, dude. Yeah, I'm gonna suck it too. Oh, fuck you. Yeah, devil shit, bro. And that was it was incredibly scary, you know? And I probably like shot coke like 4 minutes later. I was like, fuck, I almost, Jenny, you don't understand. That shot almost killed me. She's like, well, just chill then. I'm like, yeah. And then I'd like go do another one, and then I'd come back to her. You don't understand. It's over and over and over again. I started getting really paranoid, right? Because that's what cocaine does. That's what all uppers do to me. I cannot not be paranoid on coke, and especially when you shoot it. When you shoot it, it's amplified paranoia for sure. So I started getting really weird. You know, I'd be looking like this, and I'd leave the backside of the house, and I'd like just pop up in a window, and I'd be like a giraffe. And Preston's dad would be like, he'd like open the window, and what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, dude, I dropped something in the window, man. He's like, are you on drugs, Ryan? I'm like, and I'd like leave, walk back to the back of the house, and then walk right back to the window and like pop my head up, and he'd see me again. Be like, all right, goddamn it, what's going on? What the hell is going on, Ryan? That's how he'd be. And I'd be like, Yeah, dude, I'm blazed. Some bad pot, man, Maui Wowie or something. Because, you know, he's like some old hippie. He's like, hey, lay off that crazy grass. But this would start happening all 9 in the morning. I'm crawling on the sidewalk, looking up, like doing like soldier reconnaissance shit. Like, it was pretty bad. I'd be looking through the trash because I thought, in my mind, I was convinced that Jenny was cheating on me and that like somehow there was going to be evidence in the trash. And I'm just looking through shit. There's like old, like, you know, scrambled eggs and shit. I'm just like throwing the yolk to the side and like looking at any piece of paper, convinced that I'm going to catch her. So this guy started being like kind of over us being there. And around that time, that guy Opius, whatever. Poppius is what I've been calling him in the stories. The guy that was like my best friend in high school. He came around and he was like really bad on heroin. And he started like kind of sending me in that direction. So on top of having this really bad IV coke thing, I started doing a lot more heroin with this guy. So I'm doing speedballs and my physical appearance just deteriorated. You know, I had shit stains on my underwear that literally looked like burns, looked like gashes or something. It was like some pollutant was seeping out of my asshole. And I'd be like walking around in my boxers and you just see these crescent, like polluted shit stains. So Preston's dad, like at a certain point, you know, after enough time with me like popping my head up in the window and like crawling on the sidewalk, neighbors would complain. They'd be like, your tenant was crawling on the sidewalk again. We think he might be on drugs. And he would just come to me and he'd be like, look, I can't have you doing that kind of weird stuff in front of my neighbors. It's one thing if you're doing it to me. It's like, I don't support it, but I can't have you anywhere in the front yard. It got to a point where he got sidewalk chalk, like that little kids have, like a hot pink color, and he drew a line, and he's like, look, you cannot go past this line unless it's from noon to 4 o'clock. Normal hours. Like if it was early in the morning, it was sketchy. If it was at night, it was sketchy. And I wasn't allowed to leave that line. And like, you tell somebody that's in cocaine psychosis, like I'd be like trying to sneak to the line and I just stare at it. I'd like stare at the line, like thinking like I could like think it to move or something. Like in my mind, I couldn't go past it. I don't know what I thought. I thought I was going to like combust into flames or something. I was really out of my fucking head at that point. And eventually, I was probably there about a month, right? Preston would call from county. And I'd be like, hello. He'd be like, hey man, you know, I talked to my dad. He says you're acting like a kook, bro. I'm pretty sure Jenny's cheating on me. Maybe with your dad. That's probably why he's telling you that. Because he's trying to get rid of me so he can fuck her. I gotta go, man. And he'd be like, he was getting frustrated too because he was trying to talk to me and I would say stuff like that. I'm not joking. These are really like exactly the kind of calls we would have. I was really losing my marbles. You know, shooting cocaine is just so much more intense than snorting it. It's like more intense, I'd say, than smoking crack. And I started getting bad on the heroin too. So I just started looking horrible. I looked like a zombie. Like the zits would like meld into each other and it just looked like I had like these like sores all over me. I looked horrible. So one day, Preston's dad's like, look, I got the Holyfield fight. You want to come watch it in the living room? I'm like, oh, yeah. He's like, you want a beer? You want a cold beer or something? I was like, oh, uh-huh. And Jenny was so coked out at this point that she can't really watch me. So I'm out in the living room and he like gives me a beer and I'm just, the fight's going on the TV and I'm just staring at him. It wasn't Holyfield. Who the fuck was it? It was, God damn it. I do not remember, but I forget who the boxer was, but it was not Holy. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Like, who cares? I'm supposed to be watching the fight. I'm just staring at him instead. Finally, the fight's over. The whole time, I didn't look at the fight once. I'm just staring at Preston's dad. And he looks at me and he's like, Ryan, I've watched you the entire time. You didn't watch this fight that I paid $90 for on pay-per-view. You were staring at me. You're on drugs. Your erratic behavior is intolerable. I hate to do this to you, bud, but you gotta go. I was like, yeah. Oh, yeah, no. All right, man. I'm gonna go get my shit. He's like, not now. He's like, I'll give you, a week, 2 weeks to figure out where you're gonna go. But you gotta get out of here. He, ordered the fight just so that, I think he wouldn't feel bad about him asking me to leave or whatever. So, at that point, somewhere in that time of me just acting weird, I'm staying up for 4 or 5, 6, 7 days at a time. Paul calls me and tells me that this is when he had called me and he said that he had somebody from Spike TV named Adam that wanted to buy the clip of him getting burned on fire for $3,500, non-exclusive rights. I was the last person that had that video because when he was living with me in Monterey, he was trying to get back into making videos. He was trying to get back into editing, and he had all of his old mini DV tapes up at my place in Monterey. That was the time period where he had won a contest for making a Converse shoe video. He was a talented guy, and he just had drifted into his addiction. I drifted into mine. We had these plans to make a movie together, just never panned out. So he's calling me in the state that I was in. He's like, are you listening to me? I was like, yeah. I'm staring at, I have a lantern. I'm trying to count how many, fireflies there are because I think it means something. And so what had happened to that footage is when I remember at that apartment, he ended up running away and going off with some girl to Vegas. I ended up staying there for a while by myself. That's when my dad's friend kicked the door down. When I was laying in bed, I'd shit my pants. I'd piss my bed. I'd Cookie Crisps all around me. There were syringes littered everywhere. It was a fucking wasteland. I was on some life preserver, but it was my mattress that was all soiled with my shit. My dad had made me go to rehab, back to detox in Florida, and all of my stuff got packed up and put in a storage unit. I'd never bothered to get that stuff. I didn't need that shit. But Paul's like, I really need that money, bro. I'm homeless. I'll give you $500. I was like, I don't need the money. Because at that point, I'm selling Molly. So I have money. Money is not the issue. It's him telling me that he has somebody from Spike TV that's interested in this clip. In my mind, I'm like, wait a second. This definitely came from cocaine psychosis. I'm like, wait. He has somebody that works for a TV studio. I'm in the go-between. I can grab this contact. I can have a contact at Spike TV. I'm going to get this I don't give a fuck. I'm going to get this video, and then I'm going to, in my mind, I was like, I'm going to personally hand deliver it to this guy, Adam, and then I'm going to tell him what a great creative I am, and then he's going to give me a TV show, and I'm going to be the man. I dumped the recycling bin out. I was like, oh, fuck. I know there's a clue in here somewhere. I swear, this is how I was. So I told my dad, I called him. I was like, Dad, I need to get in the storage unit. My dad's like, is this a Ponzi scheme? I'm like, listen, I need to get in there. And I explained it to him. I was like, look, Paul has this guy at Spike TV and he wants to buy this video and then I want to pitch it. And my dad's just like, okay, I'll give you access to it. Because he was paying I don't know, $100 a month or whatever it was. So I actually drove up to Monterey, twacked out, all coked out, got this mini DV. I got possession of it, and then I ended up calling this dude, Adam, that worked for Spike. Now, Adam was like, hey, man, he was really cool. And I ended up working with this guy for a long time, but that was the first time I talked to him. And I don't think I was like super coked out the day that I talked to him. When I'm on coke, it's so fucking obvious. I'm just like I'm not very coherent, you know? That's one drug that I really just can't fake. Like, it's obvious when I'm on coke. People that I know can tell right off the bat if I am. Because I'm like, hey, nah, coke? Nah, I quit. What do you do, guy? You go swimming? So Adam was like, yeah, hey, look, I have a prepaid FedEx account. I'll just give you the number. You put it in a box, print a label, and we cover it. And I was like, listen, Adam, this is the thing, man. This footage I have of Paul, it's the last remaining footage known to man of Paul getting burned. I was like, this shit is invaluable. Your money means nothing to me, man. This is history. He's like, okay, what do you suggest we do with it? I was like, well, let me bring it to you. What's your home address, man? And he was like, where are you located? I'm like, Santa Barbara. He's like, ooh, I'm down in Hollywood. I was like, well, I mean, I'm mobile. I got a car, man. He's like, yeah, why don't you come down to Lucky Strikes this Friday? It's a bowling alley bar in right in Hollywood off Highland Avenue. Meet me and give me the tape. It was actually it's like a mini DV or whatever. I was like, yeah. All right, great, man. So, of course, I tell Jenny, I was like, Jenny, I got a meeting with an executive at Spike. And she's like, oh my God, it's great. Can I get a bump? And I'm like, yeah, here. So she's all like in her own delusions, right? We end up going down to LA. You know, we go from Santa Barbara that night because now Preston's dad had like given us an ultimatum that we have to get out of there. This is how delusional I was. I was like, okay, I'd never met anybody from the television or film industry at that point. I thought that just because this guy worked for Spike, that I'd be able to make such a good impression, that I'd be able to like start working for him immediately, and they'd probably throw a condo in. Yeah, and if you want a condo, here's the keys, dog. Fuck it. You work for us now. You know, this is the kind of weird coke shit that I had in my mind. So we end up driving down there. We had money, and we were doing all right at that time. So we drive down there. I didn't shoot any coke that night at all. I was just snorting it. But I was snorting it like I had a vacuum in there or something. We get down to Lucky Strikes. We park the Volvo. Go with her inside of there. I have the tape like in a plastic bag. In Lucky Strikes, there's a bunch of different, you know, it's like, at that time, this was back in like 2004, 2005, Lucky Strikes was like a super trendy place. Keanu Reeves was there that night. He was like, whoa. They're like, do it again, do the whoa thing again. He's like, whoa. And I was like, oh my God, it's Keanu Reeves. Trina's like, don't look at him. I don't want him to see us. I was like, huh? And so we like ended up, at that place it's a bar, but you can get like bowling lanes. So you have to be paired up with people, right? And we end up getting paired up with this like 350-pound black dude. Huge black guy. And this little wiry Puerto Rican dude with like his tongue pierced. And that was like our pairing. Like you like shared the lane or whatever. The black guy was super, super cool. He's like, hey, you know, hello. What do you guys do? I was like, well, I'm here because I have a meeting with the executive from Spike TV, and I'm bringing this tape right here. Oh, that's wonderful. You know, I'm an actor myself. I was like, oh, yeah? What have you been in? He's like, you know, I was in a Larry Clark film called What's Up, Rockers? I was like, huh? And so I had just seen that movie. Larry Clark's the guy that directed Bully, movie that Nick Stahl's in. You're name dropping. Sorry. Nick Stahl's in that movie. Larry Clark also directed Kids. two of my favorite movies. What's Up Rockers was a new movie that had just come out about like young Mexican, you know, skater kids in LA. Kind of a movie that was, you know, going around the skateboarding community. It was a real movie. I had just seen it. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I mean, Keanu Reeves was there. I'm hanging out with this like 350-pound black guy that was in a movie that I'd just seen. I was like, this is fucking, I made it. I made it. And I called my parents. I was like, hey, I made it. My dad's like, huh? Are you all right? Are you in jail? I'm like, I made it. I gotta go. And so I end up hanging out with these guys. Now, the black guy was cool. Actor dude. I was like, how was working with Larry? He's like, it was great. It was great. Like, you know, once in a while he'd like kind of get flamboyant on me, and I was cool. I liked the guy. His boyfriend was sassy as fuck. He's like, let's go to the bathroom and snort some cocaine. I was like, all right. I go with him. And he's like, did you know that I was homosexual? I was like, no. What? He's like, come on, dog. I'm wearing overalls. Are you homosexual? Tell me if you are, because I don't give a fuck, homie. I don't give a fuck, fool. Smell my wrist. That's Chanel, dog. Chanel fucking lotion, homeboy. I was like, all right, cool. I snort coke with him. You know, I give a little sack to Jenny or whatever. I end up drinking. End up getting really, really, really drunk that night. You know, I didn't drink a lot at that time, but that particular night I got drunk. I think because I was just kind of anxious to meet Adam. Got really coked out too. He ends up showing up. You know, he calls. He's like, hey man, I'm here. Do you want to come meet me out front? I was like, guys, he's here. They're like, oh my God. We like did like a huddle. We like said a little prayer together. Jenny's like, kill it, babe. I like walk across the fucking, you know, this bar floor. I see Keanu. I'm like holding the bag up at him. I'm like, Keanu, all right. I go outside. I see Adam. Adam is the coolest looking fucking guy I've ever seen in my life. He looks like the Fonz. He's like wearing like a leather jacket. I'm like, God, that guy's hot. That guy's fucking hot. I'm a straight guy. I think that guy's hot. Like, pull the girl aside. I was like, do you think he's hot? Do you think he's so hot? I was like, I knew it. I was like, all right, be cool. I was like, yo, Adam, it's Ryan. And I probably, like, in my mind thought that I looked good, but I had, like, zits that were, like, fucking melting my eyeball together and shit. I was like, hey, man. Yeah. So, look, I gotta be completely honest with you, kinda. One of the reasons that I wanted to get you down here is because I wanted to kind of, like, pitch the fact that, you know, this is the first of many videos like this that I have. And not only that, I have ideas, dog. I have ideas. Smell this. You smell that? He's like, Chanel? I was like, yeah. Some gay Puerto Rican dude gave me that. He has a boyfriend that's like 350 pounds. I fucking love it. Hollywood, dude. He's like, yeah. All right. Yeah, here you go. Here's my business card. You got some ideas? Shoot me a line, man. I was like, all right, yeah, for sure. All right. I mean, you know, there's a few people tonight that had kind of offered the same, but I'll consider you, babe. And I leave, and like right as I go inside, I like jump up and I'm like, yes. Fucking landed it. Yes. I like was so drunk and so coked out that I really thought that that's what that meant. I go back to the bowling lane that we had with the couple, and they're like, so? I was like, he gave me his card. They're like, no. I was like, he gave me his card and he said to shoot him a line. They all started clapping. Jenny's like, oh my God, I fucking love you. Come here. You did it, baby. You did it. I was like, yeah, we're rich now. What's up? This was just me being wasted, right? Okay. This is not the point of the story, though. The point of the story is this. We end up parting with this couple. This black dude and the What's Up Rockers guy. We hang out with them until the bar closed at like 2 a.m. They're both stumbling drunk. And they're like, you guys want to come back to our place with us? I was like, does a bear shit in the woods? Of course I do. I'm a television dude now. I only fuck with actors, you know what I mean? Look at the black guy, like wink at him. So anyway, so I end up we take a taxi. I left my car there in Hollywood. We end up taking a taxi, and we go to some, I don't know what it is, like a townhouse, I guess is how you would describe it, bungalow or something. This was in North Hollywood. So this was probably like 20 minutes from where we were. While we're there, this is not their house, by the way. Like, we're like at some get together. It's all gay guys. It's gay guys, me and Jenny. We have Molly on us, you know, so we end up giving Molly to all these people for free, all these gay dudes. Everybody loves us there. Jenny and I are like on this couch. We're just like cuddling up. We took Molly too. We're rolling. We've been drinking and doing blow all night. I end up talking to the Puerto Rican dude. And he's like, so, where do you guys stay at? West LA, the Valley, not downtown. Downtown? I was like, no, we live in Santa Barbara. He's like, it's so far from here. I was like, yeah, I was just down here for the meeting with the exec. Exec? I didn't even like know any other terms. Like, all these years later, I finally fucked with an exec like 4 days ago. They turned my movie down, but like that's how long it took to get to like somebody on that level. This guy was just an associate producer for Spike. And so I start having like one of these like drunk Molly Coke conversations with this dude, and I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm getting kicked out right now of the place. We're renting a room because one of my friends is in jail. He's like, oh my God, where are you going to stay? I was like, I don't know. We might be homeless. Might have to eat out of dumpsters or some shit. He's like, oh, fuck that. Fuck that. You're going to stay with us. I don't know whose house we're at, but it doesn't really matter because he was like, you are going to stay with us. I was like, what about your boyfriend? He's like, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. You guys have Molly? Just give us Molly every day and we'll just do Molly every single day and you can live with us. I was like, all right, cool. Again, by this point, I'm like kind of like rolling whatever. I'm like kind of playing it cool. Jenny and I had to leave for some reason. I don't remember the specifics of it. I posted a picture from this night at some point, somewhere on Patreon, and if maybe I didn't, maybe I'm confused, but I have a picture with this couple, the black dude, the Puerto Rican guy, and like a few of the gay dudes that were there that night. And I had this conversation, and I'd met a few people, so I like exchanged numbers with a few people, you know, a few people wanted Molly, whatever. And we were supposed to go live with this couple, you know? And so, for whatever reason, we had to go back. I just cannot remember why. If I had to guess, it was probably, even though I was like barely functional IV Coke addict at that point, I still like did deals. Like I would still sell like ounces, whatever. That's like was our livelihood. Pretty sure that maybe I had to go back to meet somebody to do like to sell an ounce or two the next day in Santa Barbara. Whatever the case was, we left. So I remember talking to Jenny on the way home. I was like, God, can you believe this? Like, I meet Adam. We meet this gay couple that's going to let us live with them. All we have to do is feed them Molly like it's grapes. Fuck it. The luck that we have is it's amazing. She's like, I love you so much, baby. You're a big shot now. You're a movie maker. I love you. I was like, yeah, I love you too. We go home. That night was kind of like one of those things where it's kind of a blur the next day. Like, wake up. I remember fragments. I have Adam's business card. In my phone, I have a bunch of phone numbers. I cannot remember the gay dude's name, right? Back then, I think that it was the Razor phone. I don't know. It was like a flip phone. Wasn't as sophisticated as like a contact log is now. Whatever the case was, I didn't remember what his name was, but we were really banking on the fact that we were going to move in with him and his boyfriend. So Jenny was like, are you going to call that dude? I was like, fuck, do you remember his name? She's like, no. I was like, neither do I. I'm going through my contact list. And, you know, of course, I'm selling drugs at that point. So I have all sorts of weird names. Like Gary 7, you know, David the 13th of England. I'm like, what? Who's that? She's like, I don't know. Sounds fucking hot though. I'm like, hey, come on. I couldn't remember what this guy's name was. So like, I'm going through my contact list and I can't find it. we're at Preston's dad's house the next day. Preston's dad's like, guys, I put an ad up on Craigslist, and I actually have a woman that's interested in renting your space. And again, I feel absolutely terrible that I have to ask you guys to leave, but I just can't. For the sake of the reputation of my house and the neighborhood, I really can't have you guys stay here anymore. I know you're on drugs, and I feel for it, but I rented a fight on pay-per-view, and you watched me the whole time with big bogle eyes. I was like, bogle eyes? He's like, yeah. I was like, well, hey, you know what? I do, it's cool. You've been great to us. I'm actually going to go stay with a Puerto Rican and an obese gay black guy. So what? So it's cool. Oh, you guys found a place? I was like, yeah, we got a place in LA. We're going to be living with this couple. That's great. When are you going? We're working out the logistics now. I swear to God, for like 3 hours after that breakfast, because now he's like pretty much saying like, yeah, like I'm moving another, like some girl in that's going to rent it. Now we have to leave. I mean, yes, we could stay in hotels, but we were fucking sick of it. We didn't want to. It was like inevitable that I was going to get arrested because they were under the kind of scrutiny that I was talking about in the beginning of the video. For like 3 hours, I'm going through the phone. I'm calling everybody. People are like yelling at me. They're like, you owe me $340, bitch. I'm like, fuck. Delete that number. All right. Hello. Finally, somebody picks up. Name was, it was like something with an R, some weird ass name with like an R, like I don't know. I forget what the name is. Rory or some weird ass shit like that. Like roar. I don't know. I call some random number and it's like, hello? It's a gay dude. Right? I didn't know that many gay people back then. I was like, hey man, it's Ryan. Ryan from last night in Hollywood. Met you and your boyfriend. Went to your other friend's house, we partied, gave everyone Molly, remember? Ryan, how are you? I was like, good. Dude, listen, I don't know if you were drunk. I don't know if it was like some coked up conversation, but you said that I could come stay at your place. My girl and I are getting kicked out of the place we're living. We really don't want to stay at hotels here. Is that offer still on the table? We can pay you the way that we said that we would pay you. We're just hoping that the offer still stood. He's like, of course it does. Of course it does. I'm like, all right, cool. What kind of place do you have? Well, is it an apartment? Is it a house? It's like, oh, it's a big boy house. I was like, put the phone down. It's like, it's a big boy house. Big boy. All right. Jenny's like, big boy. I don't know. Yeah, great. And you know what? We're not opposed to paying some rent. You guys have something much better than rent to us. Great. Well, this guy that I'm staying at right now is my friend's dad. He wants us out of there. Do you think we can come like tonight? Of course. Come whenever you want. I was like, what's the address? Now, back then it was like different. People didn't like text addresses. I like actually wrote it down. I remember writing this address down. I go tell Preston, I was like, I got good news. I'm out of here. Now we're going to go move in. I could tell he was like sad that he had to kick us out. But we just really wanted to get out of there. It was less sketchy to live in LA, even if we had gone and lived at hotels or whatever. But this seemed like a better situation. We didn't want to spend money if we didn't have to. Plus, gay dudes are always connected to people that party and do Molly and shit. So it seemed like a win-win for us. But just coming up to Santa Barbara periodically when we had to for business was safer being down there than it was where we were at motels in Santa Barbara. So he ends up giving us this address, and the place that it was located is a place called Encino. It's in the San Fernando Valley, and it's the same place that I lived at right when I got out the first time. It was like was like in between there and Sherman Oaks was where this address was. And this dude gave me an address to a house. So like we could tell, like, you know, back then it's not like it is now where you could just look up on like, you know, Zillow and like see a picture of the house by the address. But just kind of like knowing the area, I was like, damn, it's probably a nice house. You know, the night before was kind of a blur, so we didn't really remember it. Anyway, we ended up packing all of our stuff, bring everything, all of our Molly, everything. We head down there. We head down to LA. It's like an hour and a half from Santa Barbara to Encino. We end up getting to this house. I call him, and he doesn't pick up. We're outside, and we're looking at this place. It's like kind of how I expected it. There's like a gate. House is pretty big. Probably like, I don't know, 4-bedroom house, but like a big 4 bedrooms. Up on a hill, so it like has a view, whatever. This guy's not picking up. I call him like 50 times, not picking up. I leave messages, text him, whatever. We end up waiting outside for like a good 3 hours, 4 hours probably. I mean, we're there like to the point where we're mad. We're about to go get a hotel. Finally, he calls back. He's like, hey, so sorry. We're caught up, or we're on the other side of town. But you can go inside and you can just go through the back and it's open. There's sliding glass doors. You can go in there and you can guys just make yourself at home. We're just moving in there. We don't have a lot of stuff in there. Just go find a place and crash. When you wake up, the king and queen will be back for you guys. We were tired. Like 3 or 4 hours had gone by and remember, we partied the night before. I think we were doing blow that night. I don't remember this night that I'm talking about. I know that I was doing heroin for sure that night because we end up hopping over this fence with our stuff. Like Jenny goes first. She was kind of like I don't know. Kind of like a tomboy. She jumps over. I grab like our duffel bag. I'm the butler. I'm like, "Suh." I throw it up on this fence. She takes it, and we walk up this like driveway. It was like a steep driveway going up. Go up. There's like ladders and stuff, like, you know, paint easels, all this shit. I don't know. I don't know what it was. It was like some sort of like outdoor artist studio or some shit. I don't know. There were like all these ladders and there were like these big canvases. It was weird. It's like a big house. We ended up going around to the back of the door and just like you said, open the sliding glass door, turn on light, big empty house. There's furniture, but it's like very like, there's not a lot of furniture. You can tell that like they haven't been living there that long. Jane's like, damn, this is nice. It was way nicer than what we expected. So we go into this living room. There's like this big like leather sofa. Put our bag down, and they had a TV. Turned it on. Just made ourselves at home. I remember I did a shot of heroin that night, and I passed out. Like I said, we partied the night before. We were already tired. We wake up sometime later. I'm not sure how like many hours had passed or whatever, but there's just ba 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 on the front door, like angry knocking. We're like, fuck, you know, we didn't know what was going on. Didn't really sound like cops because it was just like ba ba ba. It was like so angry. Jenny like springs awake, starts like, what the fuck? I'm like, I don't know. Somebody sounds mad. She's like, go see who it is. Now remember, I'm like already like on some paranoid shit. I don't remember if I was doing blow that night, but I remember like kind of like crawling through the house. The knocking does not end. Ba 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 ba. And I like finally get to a vantage point where I can see through this window that's like on the it's like in the front living room, and there's like where the front door is. It's like one of those windows that's like stained glass or whatever, but it's still translucent enough where you can like see past it. And I could see 3 cops. There are 3, so it was cops. And I didn't think that at first because cops have like a very particular knock. This was like ba 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 ba, and they just weren't saying anything. They were just kept knocking like that. They probably knocked like that for like 10 minutes. Freaked us the fuck out. Now, at this point, we're both startled. We have all of our drugs on us in that duffel bag. So I'm like, dude, just leave it. Just leave the bag. Leave the bag. Let's go out the back. Put the duffel bag, set it down right by the couch where we had been sleeping. And we both just head towards the back of the house, right? Open the sliding glass door. We're going around. We didn't know where we were, but we knew that we couldn't go to the front yard, you know, because that's where the cops are. I saw 3 of them. Who knows? There could have been more. All I could see was 3. So our plan is obviously to go try to get out of there through the backyard. And we will get into what happens next in the next installment of The House. Palabra.